Hello, everyone. We're just waiting for a couple more people to join, but I think we will start our session for today. Thank you very much, everyone, to joining. It's nice to see a good turnout. I hope you'll find this session interesting and informative and beneficial. Just to give you a little bit of an introduction, this is the first session from a series of 4 that we will be running in the next couple of months. The reason we're running these sessions is because we see B2B e-commerce market changing and a landscape of it changing. And we are asking ourselves a question how we can help businesses in this changing environment. And so we decided to issue a number of webinars that are focusing on examining the change in a B2B e-commerce market and talking a little bit about the influences that are happening on it from the B2C market, as well as some recent sociological and technological changes. So that you're aware, we will be recording this session. So if you do not want to be on record, please remain on mute throughout the session. We will have some time for questions. So if you do have any questions, please jot them down. And in the end of the session, we'll give you an opportunity to ask your questions, and we'll be glad to take some questions and start a conversation. And of course, last but not least, material from this session will be shared on LinkedIn. So we will be sending out everyone who registered for this webinar a link to this video as well as the deck. So any materials, any references to any of the articles that are mentioned in our webinar today will be available to you, and you'll be able to click through and read them for yourself. So without further ado, let's start. To start, I would like to give a bit of an introduction to our session today. We will be first stopping by at the introduction session, so to say. I would like to give a couple of words about who Reply are and who Portal Tech is. Some of you might be familiar with us, others perhaps not so we'll just touch quickly on that, and we will tell you about what we do in the space briefly. Then I would like to focus our attention on the B2B market, the state of it and the potential, because I think there are some very interesting facts that we would like to share with you about that space. And then we will be moving on to the B2B market forces at play, which is actually the topic of our webinar for today. And we will dive into further, a little bit deeper analysis as to what forces are actually affecting B2B market, what do we see happening today, and what we are expecting to happen tomorrow. After that, we'll have a little bit of time for questions, answers, and open discussion, which we would be really keen to have with you. And please encourage you to submit your questions through the chat. We will do our best to answer those. And of course, do not hesitate to come off mute if you want to ask a question directly. So please help yourself to doing that. And we will finish on a very short, just one slide, as talking about the future webinars, the other 3 that we will be running on the topic of B2B, as well as providing some of our contact details, which again will be accessible to you if you access this deck through LinkedIn later. You'll be able to find the profile of key people within Portal Tech, and we'll be more than happy to talk to you about any kind of question or idea that you might have in relation to this topic. So let's start on an introduction. So Portal Tech is part of Reply. Reply is a very interesting organization. When I joined it, I was a little bit surprised by its structure, but after spending 4 years with the organization, I realized it's actually a very effective and very clever way of running a business. The main upside of Reply, I would say, is the fact that it's not a monolithic organization. So we are a network of over 100 companies worldwide, and we are focusing on delivering technology. Our primary focus is in system integration. However, we also have some of the companies within the group that are focusing on design, focusing on things like robotics, things like big data, and a number of other technologies. So we're very, very diverse in that context. We are primarily domiciled in Europe. Our headquarters are in Milan, London, and Germany. But as you can see from the map, we do have branch outs in US, Brazil, Asia, and Eastern Europe is actually the one that's growing quite fast. SAP and Reply have a long-standing relationship and partnership. As you can see, we have collected accolades across a various range of areas. However, the most notably one is the one that we have been shortlisted as top 5 strategic regional partners for EMEA in 2020. And that's a very big recognition for us, which we're quite proud of from the point of view of SAP. And of course, we're working closely with them to develop that partnership. Moving on to the next slide, let's talk a little bit about Portal Tech. Just briefly, we have 3 main pillars of our competency. One is building customer experience focused solutions. Predominantly, this is done on SAP Commerce. However, technically we are technology agnostic. Of course, matters like customer data and marketing also play a role in implementation and delivery of these solutions, as well as we do strategy, we do roadmaps, and we focus on high performance implementation. So this is really where our sweet spot is. The second pillar talks about optimization tools. So of course, it's not just about the architecture, but it is also about the performance. And so this is where a recommendation engine comes in, personalization, A/B testing, things like digital touchpoints, performance tuning. And last but not least is the pillar of engineering. Of course, the core of our business is system integration in all of its kinds and possibilities. And I think we've seen just about any architectural landscape in the past couple of decades that we have existed, as well as we focus heavily on performance optimization and of course data migration, which are essential for delivery of successful project. In terms of our B2B implementations, these are the 3 that I would really like to bring to your attention, and I'll just briefly summarize them for you. So British American Tobacco were really focusing on an international rollout, as well as they wanted to make better use and smarter use of their data. So we were really working with them on maximizing the value that they can get out of their data and in order to drive their business intelligence. In terms of Costco, the focus was actually very interesting internationalization to 2 quite particular languages, which is Korean and Taiwanese. Posed its own challenges in front of the team, but it's been amazing how they managed to get through it. Of course, a high performance solution, but also this is where we got into a little bit of a business process consultancy with Costco. And we've set up a 24/7 service operations for them. But eventually, we've actually helped them set up their own internal DevOps team. And we're able to hand over from a managed service type of solution to self-managed solution with Costco. And I think that's been a big achievement of that engagement. And last but not least, Sanmar. Sanmar produce textiles and goods, clothing, if you like, for those of you who might not be familiar with their business. And they were looking for ways of white labeling their storefront. And so our solution enables them to provide these sub-stores on the basis of SAP Commerce that their customers can set up on their platform and manage as their own. And a particular advantage that the solution has given them is a competitive edge. It was the ease of onboarding process of their own customers. And we have seen tremendous expansion from the go live day in terms of their customer base. And we believe that it is specifically to the well thought through and well enabled onboarding process that we have set up for them. So moving on to the next, just to round off this, this part. This slide gives you a little bit of an idea as to what is the breadth of our expertise. As you can see, we have served quite a variety of verticals. And I believe that exactly is the upside of Portal Tech and Reply, that we really see different clients going through different processes and different periods in their business journey. And so that really keeps us close to observing the market evolution and trends. And that's why we would like to share with you today what we have been observing, what we have been discussing with our clients and prospects. So we believe it's quite interesting, and we would like to create a community around that and bring on more people on board with this. So let's move on to the next slide, and let's look at the B2B market state and potential. To start, I would like to bring a few facts to your attention. So we've browsed a little bit the internet and all these articles. There's quite a lot of data, but what really kind of stood out to us is, first of all, Statista has published that e-commerce sales to businesses and governments been only 17% behind B2C market and constituted £165.3 billion in a report that they have published in November 2019 for UK alone. Now, it's very important to mention here that B2B market, although less visible, generally tends to generate much higher value of turnover. And that's largely because the deals in B2B market tend to be larger, and in general, the supply chain, by the time it gets to the consumer, actually largely takes place behind the scenes. But because there is limited amount of B2B marketing going on, it is actually not visible to us as final consumers as much as B2C is. So this is a very important one to note. The other one that comes out of the research that Forrester had carried out is even more interesting. So Forrester says that over 90% of B2B buyers start their purchasing with an online search, and over 74% conduct their pre-purchase research online. This gives us a very interesting indication. This gives us the indication that more and more B2B buyers are actually educating themselves online first before reaching out to the actual provider. And we'll see that coming back later in our webinar again, because we'll come back to this specific topic, so just bear that in mind for now. The third piece of research that I would like to share with you on this particular topic is analysis by McKinsey. So as you know, McKinsey is a world-renowned management consultancy company, and they do all sorts of research and publish very interesting articles. But in this particular article, what they say is that they see a direct correlation between the strengths of a digital strategy within an organization and their revenue or their business growth across a number of parameters. And so you'll get this, you'll be able to find this article, and it's publicly available, you'll be able to read it. I just want to stress three main, so they've outlined six main parameters or six main indicators that a company would be successful in the space. But I would just like to bring the first three to your attention, because they also resonate with the rest of the webinar and the rest of the things that we'll be talking about. So first of all is, of course, commitment to digital at a strategic level. Digital strategy can no longer be overlooked. IT is now facilitating most operations. The manual operations are a thing of the past. And the next step to it is kind of Internet of Things, is omni-connectedness, and digital strategy and presence online. The way that it had overhauled businesses in the course of last 2 decades is simply non-arguable. We, I think, can all agree that having a digital strategy is no longer really an option. You have to have a website. Even if you're predominantly dealing face-to-face, a lot of businesses still maintain at least a non-transactional website. But ideally, you would like to have a good transactional website, and then we'll touch on this topic again, why and how you can make that work. The second one is creation of consistent experience online and offline, and we'll be talking about it, and we'll be talking about why this is important as well. And the third one is the use of data to enable your online channel, but also to enable your sales force. And again, we'll be touching again on this in the following material, and we'll come back to this. So just to summarize this section briefly, I think there are 3 important points to be made out of this research. First of all, B2B total transacted value is expected to exceed B2C by a geometric multiple in the next couple of years. We see very steady and accelerating growth in the B2B market, in the value of that market. So if we take into consideration that B2B market generally is much larger than the B2C market, then we expect that curve to overshoot the current B2C curve. And clearly that creates a lot of opportunity for a lot of businesses to share in. The second important point is that we already see a lot of engagement. We see a lot of engagement from B2B parties online. And the only conclusion from this that we can draw is that as much as there is a lot of online engagement, there is also a lot of opportunity to improve conversion rates. If your clients already come to your website, they already look for information about you, they already look for information about your products and services, it is imminent that if you enable them to sign up for your services, or to purchase your products right there, right then, that is really the best time to do that, right? And the third point is that in a B2B market, many companies have already engaged fully in establishing their digital strategy. They're already working on it year on year. And so neglecting this is no longer an option. Your competitors will do better if you won't catch up with them in terms of your own strategy and your movement forward. So let's just let that sit there for a second. I think we can all agree on the basis of these facts that B2B market is quite important. Now let's look at what is actually happening in the B2B market. B2B market is a very interesting market. As I said previously, it's a little bit elusive. It kind of happens, you know, behind closed doors. You can't really access it. You can't really just walk into it like into a supermarket and kind of oversee all the traders and feel the buzz. But actually, there is a lot of buzz going on, because daily meetings are happening in all sorts of offices where exchange of products and goods and services is taking place, and discussions preceding that are taking place. And so it's important to understand, but it's difficult to capture all of that essence somewhere in one place. And so, you know, this webinar is centered around giving you exactly that. Now, let's look at the key impacting factors of the B2B market today. First of all, we have the rise of millennials. We know that millennials, which are around 35 years old right now, have progressed down the line of their career paths for a good amount of time right now. And they're moving into decision-making positions. You can imagine that, of course, implies that they have more and more powers, purchasing powers, today as well, with the flattening of many of the organizations that previously have been reserved for the directors, the CEOs, CFOs, but with the new culture, the more flat culture of business organization, millennials now come into power. And this is important. So let's let that sit there for a second. The second important factor that is influencing the market is mobile commerce. So Google reported that more than 50% of searches online on Google are actually originating from mobile devices. So you think about tablets, you think about smartphones, right? On the other hand side, Forbes quoted Dell saying that 60% of surveyed respondents use a smartphone for work purposes, while 31% desire one. That is, if we add it up, that's 91% of all surveyed respondents that are either already using smartphone for work or desire one because they clearly see the benefit of using one. That just, I think, signifies really clearly that mobile is a key player. You know, we used to talk about e-commerce. Now we have to talk about e-commerce and mobile commerce. And last but not least, and I think, actually, I think this one has been sort of creeping up on us a little bit. They kind of been there for a little while, but I think we are forgetting, we kind of take them for granted, and I think we're forgetting a little bit that they play a more and more of an indispensable role in our life. And we kind of, you know, casually use them. You know, I need a new pair of headphones. Well, where'd you go? You go to Amazon. Why do you go to Amazon? Why is it the marketplace that you go to? Why are you not going to go to Sony? Why are you not going to go to Philips? Why are you not going to go directly to Bose? Right? And we will talk about it. We'll touch on this a little bit later in this session, why marketplaces are so important. So now that we've listed the three, let's start looking at the first ones, right? Let's start looking at millennials. Who are millennials? What kind of animal is this? And what is it important? And I will be a little bit indiscreet. I will spill the tea here and I will tell you that I'm a millennial. I'm 35 years old soon. And you know, this topic could not be closer to my heart. So here is some, you know, here is some data that I will be showing, but here is also a little bit of a personal overlay that I will be sharing on the topic. And, you know, when I dove into this research, I realized that a lot of these things really do resonate. So let's have a look at this. Before we look at millennials, I would like to look briefly at the Generation X. Generation X was the generation that was before us. This is not necessarily, I wouldn't say this is my parents, because my parents personally are a little bit older, but maybe my uncle or my aunt, right? These are the ones that were born after the baby boomers. And let's look at how they work, right? So the characteristic slogan, work hard, play hard, right? This is the typical Generation X slogan. Let's look at how they work. Well, first of all, first thing that kind of jumps into my vision at the very least is the paper cabinet, is the documents cabinet. On the left, there's a documents cabinet, something that would be absolutely unimaginable in a modern office, right? Or majority of modern offices, at least, unless you may be an accountant or somewhere where you still need to store paper. The other thing which kind of stands out for me in this picture is the attire of the people, right? Everyone sits quite straight or stands straight. The attire is relatively formal, you know. People are you can get a sensation that people are in a formal setting, right? And then, of course, last but not least, there's a big master plan, clearly, or some kind of chart that's tracking the progress. And there's a clock on the wall, right? And everybody around the table are positioned as single unit. This is characteristic of the previous ways of working. Large monolith organizations with complex hierarchy and large teams that would drive a single process jointly, and everyone had to be a little cog in this large clockwork of things. That, as most of you know, had been changing lately, and a lot of it had been driven by the millennials. Which brings me to the next point. Let's look at the millennials. Millennials. I'll just let you observe this for a second while I catch my breath. So, millennials are quite different, right? If we look at them, the first thing that stands out, the attire is far less formal, right? The lady in the middle sits on the desk. Not only she does that, she also uses a mobile device. There is very little paper around. The desks clearly are hot desks, and people seem to be working collaboratively, but in smaller groups. You sort of see the two gentlemen on the left, and you see the guy and the girl on the right working on something, maybe a design for a new website. And the lady in the middle, you know, she seems like she gets around a lot, like she has to walk around the office a lot, right? So she doesn't have that sedentary job anymore. And that's why it makes sense for her to have a tablet, and maybe she does most of her work from that tablet. Maybe it's sufficient actually. So it's really important for her to have the right tools on that tablet to be able to do her job right. So now that we looked at this picture, let's turn to some very interesting articles that's been published by Forbes. And again, at the bottom, you see the bottom of the slide, there are two links, so you can go and you can read it for yourself. I didn't take all of the information from these articles because, you know, we want to keep this as short as possible and give you as much value in this short period of time as we can. But, you know, you could go there and you could Google these articles, or you could just click on a link in a deck, and you could be taken there and you could read about more about these interesting facts that have been analyzed. So let's turn to the main categorizations, traits, features, I would say, of millennials. What do millennials live, or how do they live, and what matters to them, right? Day-to-day life. Because understanding who they are, you can then better understand your customers. You can better understand your B2B clients. So first of all, millennials are socially conscious. This is the generation that started to campaign more actively for ecological change, for sustainability, right? These are the people who look at their kids and think, what world is my kid going to live in? And then they realize that the previous generations, maybe not by their own fault, by mere overlook or oversight, have made certain mistakes, and millennials are definitely are on a task today to fix some of these problems. So they're very socially conscious, right? And they're very, you know, social responsibility is important for them. The second point is they're omni-connected. Millennials have gone through this complete change from using a landline when they were kids to the first mobile phones, to playing Snake on the little Nokia 3310, the unbreakable Nokia. You could sink it in the ocean and then pick it up, take it home, dry it, and it would still work. And the only thing that it could do, it could call and it could send SMS. In fact, SMS actually didn't come for a few years. The first phones could just call. So this is the generation that had been observing the whole transformation of the world from the mobile point of view, actually, and you know, the .com boom and many other evolutions that we just take for granted today. So omni-connected entails email, social networks, personal social networks, as well as professional. All types of messengers. We're talking about WhatsApp, Telegram, talking about Signal, I don't know, you name it. Dating apps, right? Our life had become busier, so most people of my age are active in some way on dating apps, those that haven't settled, of course, yet, but nonetheless, right? That's another channel. Then we got news and media. mobile news apps, streaming services, IPTV, content and service aggregation apps. So for example, Apple News is an aggregator of news from different sources. You know, if I sign up on Apple News Plus, I can read articles from New York Times and Washington Post and Daily Mail and so on, irrespective of having a subscription directly with that provider. And that really generates a lot of value for the end users. So there's all these apps to monitor, right? There's all this, you know, professional and personal life to monitor. Then what happens? That creates shortage of time. That puts us under pressure because there are too few hours in the day and we're trying to achieve everything, and we're trying to get everything done at work, trying to maintain a nice social life. We want to have that dinner with our friends. We want to see somebody on the weekend, you know, beyond our spouse or boyfriend or girlfriend, right? So, and that means that we need to communicate in personal as well. So we're under pressure to get things done. And so we pay less focus, we pay less attention to formalities. We're much more interested in getting things done, getting through our day, and making sure that along the way, every service, every product that we use, that it helps us to do that. So it's really important, you know, for me, if I'm on the run from one appointment to the other, it's really important that that app doesn't crash on me at the most important point when I need to look up where I need to go, or I need to get my navigation, or I need to pay for my ride on a tube. It's really important that technology doesn't fail me. If it does, it can really ruin my day, or it can really, you know, set me up for some kind of really unpleasant situation. And so there's a lot of attention to that. Another interesting aspect is the creativity. And I think with the more and more of exposure to social networks like Instagram and Facebook, and TikTok is the latest fad, right? There's much more creativity in millennial generation, but in particular, I would say in Generation Z, guys that have grown up with all these technologies. But millennials are nonetheless very much involved. Millennial generation is also a generation of self-starters. A lot of startups have emerged in the course of last 20 years, and that's definitely the doing of the millennials. And last but not least, where we were talking about a little bit, we touched on this a little bit in the too few hours in a day section, but millennial generation values experiences over possessions. And this is really, really, really important. Really focus on what is my experience when I use somebody's service. That's really important. So, you know, millennials are not likely to chase after a car or a house or a villa. You know, well, to start, my generation, majority of my generation, is not even able to afford a house. If you live in a place like London, or you live in a place like Paris, or you live in a place like New York, you know, this is a completely different standard. Like our parents were able to afford a flat by 30 and by 40 years old, you know. We are nowhere there, well, majority of us at least. So this is also another thing. So we refocus, you know, we try to maximize, we try to make the most of our life, and we think what really counts. And then I think we all came to a realization at some point that experiences, our memories, the things that we have experienced with somebody, or something that we've built together, or some kind of impact that we have made on the surrounding environment or people around us, that's what really, really matters in the end of the day. That's something that you look on at the end of your life and you think, wow, I've really achieved something. But let's go back from philosophy, back on earth, and let's look at what we believe, as Portal Tech can reply, what we believe is really important for you to establish yourself as a business with people like millennials. First of all, you have to build your brand online. You have to build up your online presence, because approximately 60%, more than half, of the B2B decision-making process has happened before the customer had reached out to you, as per research of Gartner. On our personal experience, I can tell you that when we hear from our prospective customers, they are anywhere 70 to 95% decided on technology, and they're anywhere between 30 to 60% decided on the system integrator. And that's the moment we get the RFP in. So you can imagine that these clients have done extensive amount of research online. They have read reviews, they have read Gartner analysis, they have read Forrester analysis, they have browsed internet sufficiently to make up their mind for most of it. And the only thing that then can make a difference in this decision making are largely the commercials and the timeline. But when we hear from them, they're largely already decided. So it's really, really important that when they do their research, you give them the information, you give them the input and the analysis and the information needed for them to make the right decision. And if you really have some great competencies and you really have some amazing product or amazing service, make sure you put it out there, because you don't know who is reading it, but it can definitely generate some business for you. Second, it's not just important to put the information and the marketing material out there. Mind you, please be honest with your marketing material. I'll get to that point. It's really important to be honest. But the second point is end-to-end experience. Think about what is your customer end-to-end journey through your value add chain. Starting with online presence that we just talked about. Moving on to the engagement. If the customer wants to interact with you, if they want to get some more information, how do you provide this information? How do you actually provide, sell that product and sell that service to them? What is the process? Is it difficult? Is it easy? Would they go through a salesperson at first? Would they go online first? Could they go online and then be handed over to a salesperson or a customer service agent, etc.? How does it work? How do you deliver a product? If it's a product, you might be delivering it physically. If it's a service, you might be delivering it in terms of consultants being present on grounds of your customer's office or maybe at other premises. Is there an aspect of self-service? Once the customer became the customer, they bought your product or service, can they easily self-service through your commerce platform? And last but not least, and one that sometimes is overlooked, is returns and exceptions management. Exception management is so important. When something goes wrong, how graceful is your organization? How graceful is your supply chain to handle this smoothly and provide good experience to your customers? So part of this is omnichannel homogeneous experience and seamless handover. How do you hand over between channels? How easy are your channels to use? How easy are they to access? How easy are they to actually work? Personalization. If you hold already information on your customer, do you maximize that information? Do you maximize the utilization of that information? Or are you suggesting some products that might not be even relevant? And you could have made the link between the type of customer you're interacting with, maybe through your commerce platform, and the kind of products you're showing them. Have you connected those dots? Does it work? Third, be honest and authentic. Be honest and authentic because we are all quite a bit disillusioned in marketing messages, and I hope that most people will agree. I think marketing as an institution has crossed a few lines in the course of the last few decades, and I think largely public is disillusioned with that, and that's why we see the rise of social marketing, because people don't listen to companies anymore. People listen to their friends, or they listen to somebody they know, somebody they admire that recommends the service that they've tried and they've verified that it works well. And people tend to trust that much more than a direct marketing message or direct sales call. Kind of part of the being honest and authentic as well is communities and sustainability. Make sure you articulate really well to your customers in your online presence or in the interaction you might be having with them. How does your business contribute to communities? What do you give back? And what are the steps you take to support sustainability of our planet, our ecology, our communities, our way of life? This is really, really important with millennials, and even more so with Generation Z. Last but not least, take care of your workforce. So I'm going to quote Henry Ford here. He said, "Look after your people, and they will look after your business." And that's really important, because if you do take care of your people, they will deliver results, and they will also deliver quality. But this is not the main topic of this presentation today. The main important point about this is that if you take care of your people, they will also become the ambassadors of your organization in a wider space, in virtual or with their family, with their friends, with their acquaintances. I remember a point in my life when I joined Vodafone Netherlands, and at the time, Vodafone had heavily invested in their workforce, and in particular, they have set up this amazing office. It had lounges where we could take prospective customers to and have meetings. It had a library where mobile phones were not allowed and noise was not allowed. We had bin bags. We had little these chairs that had this screen around them, and you can have a mobile phone call in that chair without disturbing people around you. We had little glass cubicles where you could sit down and work if you had to really put your head down for something and focus. And otherwise, the office was quite open. That is now back in 2010. So 10 years ago, they were kind of really the pioneers of this space. And I'm not joking. I've probably buzzed all my friends' ears about Vodafone and how glad I was to work in that space, how motivated I was, and really I was quite focused. So this is really, really important aspect as well. But let's move on. So we've talked now a little bit about millennials, and we've talked about the principles, the main principles of how, who are millennials and how can you make a millennial happy. So let's move on now to mobile commerce. We talked a little bit, we've brought a few facts, but I want to just expand on this a little bit. So first of all, mobile commerce is really important because mobile commerce had been growing at twice the pace of e-commerce, and it constitutes 33% of total B2B e-commerce market. Also, mobile commerce is seen by 78% of B2B companies as the future of their business. And thirdly, according to Frost and Sullivan, who surveyed a large group of people, the results were that respondents said that using a mobile device for work actually saved them about 1 hour of time a day, and it increased their productivity by about 34%. Again, there will be links in the notes of this deck, and you'll be able to click those through and read that analysis. But let's now focus our attention on what it takes to actually deliver a good mobile commerce and experience. And there are three main components to it. First of all, you need a B2B enabled API. APIs are no new story, but it is really, really important that your API is diverse, flexible enough, and can support the B2B data model, because there are lots of APIs developed for B2C right now, but B2B really is quite a different animal. This is in particular where I can call out B2B adapted API of SAP Commerce, and I can kind of praise it because it's been around for a little while, and I think right now it couldn't have been more relevant today. Next is mobile first design. You have to be mobile first because, as we've seen the statistics, 50% of searches are done on mobile device. What do you think the next step is? The next step is, I want to buy this now. I found this thing. I want to buy this now. So you have to be able to provide your service, you provide your product through a mobile commerce journey. You shouldn't have to send your customers to a computer, a laptop. Maybe they don't have access. Maybe they don't have time. It has to be seamless. So mobile first design is really key. And last but not least, not only you have to enable a mobile commerce journey, a seamless mobile commerce journey from web or from the app to your commerce engine, through your commerce engine or through your buying funnel. But it is also highly recommended that you maintain feature parity. Imagine a situation where somebody had been using your website and they really enjoy the experience, but then they turn to your mobile app and it's half-baked. It crashes, you can't check out, you can't save a payment method, you can't reorder from previous order. That's not going to leave your customer with a great experience. So while maintaining different channels, make also sure that all of your channels can sustain your customer's journey effectively and provide the same set of features that your customer will expect. That summarizes the enabling of mobile commerce for this section. And now I'd like to turn our attention, because we're kind of running short on time. There's a lot we want to share. We turn it to the last last pillar, but not least. So I think these names will be familiar to everyone: Amazon, SAP, Ariba, Alibaba. These have been on everybody's radars lately. We all have heard about marketplaces and what they do for us. But there are three particular roles that I want to stress and link that back to the millennials. So first of all, marketplace allows us to shop around for a deal. It's a very basic thing, but that's what we want to do. Try shopping around on Oxford Street. You will spend a day and you'll still not find what you're looking for. Marketplace plays exactly that role. You can find just about anything. Not only that, you can also compare different providers. You can find the best price. You can read ratings and reviews on that provider and on that product. And you also have a choice of different delivery options. The same applies in the B2B market. So let's now turn to marketplaces and why they are important in B2B market. Because you would start thinking about marketplaces as Amazon and Alibaba, which tend to be a little bit more B2C oriented. But we should not overlook the fact that B2B marketplaces are on the rise. And there are three types of these B2B marketplaces. And it is essential for you to secure a solution, your commerce solution, that will be future-proof, that will be able to work with these marketplaces. So first of all, you got the public marketplaces. You got the likes of Amazon. When you choose your e-commerce solution, when you choose your platform, make sure that you're able to join such a marketplace. Make sure that the solution is built in a way that it is flexible enough and can support integration points for marketplaces that are relevant for you. So for example, Ariba network is a semi-private network. This is where different providers come from different countries, and also customers come from different countries, but it's not a publicly available marketplace. You actually need to integrate your system to it, and you need to join that you have to go through some pre-vetting registration process, and then you have to integrate your systems, and you're going to need a system integrator to help you to do that. But once you're part of that network, then you have a range of customers that you can trust, and these customers have a range of providers that they can trust. So this is what we call a kind of semi-private semi-private marketplace. And then we come to the last but not least, which again is kind of overlooked quite often. And that's a procurement operated marketplaces. And this usually happens in the situations where organizations as large as, let's say, I don't know, KPMG, or as large as Deloitte, or as large as Coca-Cola, they might not want the different departments around the world to be shopping externally from a wide range of suppliers that have not been checked for compliance, have not been checked for quality of goods and services, have not been checked for their regulatory requirements. And this is where we see an emergence of so-called procurement marketplaces. So this is where you could use a solution like SAP Commerce to actually power your internal marketplace. As a procurement team, you could be running this commerce engine where you could have an onboarding process for your vendors. You could have screening of these vendors enabled on the same platform. You can use workflows to approve these providers, approve the type of products and services that they sell on your marketplace, and then just make that available within your organization without having to distribute different price lists and having to deal with any kind of manual processes. You could automate it end to end and have an internal marketplace within your organization. So now that we've examined millennials, we've talked about mobile commerce, and we've talked about marketplaces, I'd like to draw a quick picture in your mind. How do they actually relate to each other? Well, the kind of keyword here is actually millennials. It is the new way of life. It is the new way of work that is driving the other two components that are just as important of a players in the B2B, in the modern B2B market. So the type of behavior that we observe from millennials becomes more wider and wider spread. And because millennials are always on the go, and because millennials like to do their research, that's exactly what drives the mobile commerce. And that's what drives marketplaces and any correlation between the three. This is the end of the content part of our session, and we got still a little bit of time left for questions and answers. And so I would like to open the floor right now for anyone who wants to ask a question. Please post your question in the chat, and I'll have a look there, and I would like to take up these questions and try to answer them. Again, please feel free to come off mute if you feel like it and you would like to ask a question in person. Please do not hesitate to do so. We would be glad to hear your voice. Right, okay. So we've got the first question. Okay. What role does sales team play in a new B2B market that you're describing? Right, well, thank you very much. Thank you very much for this question. This is really, really relevant. So this is one part that maybe some of you felt that you were missing in our webinar today. And that is actually on purpose. That is on purpose because we will be talking about this in the next session. So our next session, we'll talk about the roadmap and building a commerce ecosystem for your business. And this is exactly where the sales force comes into play. So please attend our following session and we will talk more in depth about that. I think right now what I can give away in brief to give you an answer here is the commerce solution, the e-commerce, the online channel does not replace your sales team. In fact, recent research shows that instead of replacing it, rather it is better to make them work together, and it's better to let them hand over your customers based on the need of your customer. And so please join our next webinar and we will be talking about it in greater depths, and then we can discuss it more in detail. But The short answer is the sales team remains very important. In fact, e-commerce engine can become a great enabler for a sales team, and also it can become a great time saver for the sales team, as well as could drive leads for the sales team. So it's a great symbiotic arrangement that could be built on those two. So please stay tuned. Join our next webinar. We'll talk more about that. Next question. Here we go. What commerce capabilities, other than those mentioned in today's presentation, would you highlight as key for success with B2B? Right, so this is kind of similar question. Let me, just give me a second. Let me think a little bit about this one. It's a good one. I guess, you know, we will be talking about this in the, funny enough, I'm sorry, I'm repeating myself, but we will be talking about this in also one of our follow-up sessions. We'll be talking about the best practices of B2B e-commerce implementation and, you know, process setup as well as the delivery of the solution. And this is where we'll be talking about all the different capabilities that are best practices in B2B space, such as reordering from order history, such as maintaining customers, organizational structure and approvals and workflows in your commerce solution, something that you typically would not have in a B2C solution. So all these nuggets, we will be zooming in on them, and that will be the third session that we'll be running. So that's going to be the one after the next one. So please, again, keep an eye out. We will be scheduling it. In the next slide, I'll also give you a list of the webinars we're still going to run. And we'll talk more about that there. Okay, last question, because we're really getting a bit of press for time today. It's been great having you all there. And thank you very much for everyone sticking around through the session. So last question. Can you tell us a bit more about your experience in implementation of marketplaces? Absolutely. Actually, this is a nice question, because one of my past engagements was Emirates Airlines. You might have seen their name up in the logos slide earlier on. And what Emirates have set out to do was a delivery of an all-encompassing travel marketplace. So what we were prototyping for them is a kind of system, is a kind of a mix of multiple systems. So one was obviously the commerce engine that we were building that had to sustain all these different types of data models to enable to sell airline tickets, ferry tickets, train tickets, but also hotel stays and car rentals and even merchandise, so that the company could package this all-encompassing end-to-end experience for their customers, take them from point A to point B and provide all these services along the way for them. So the core of it was a SAP Commerce Engine that we were working on that had to have really extensive flexibility, and it really, I think, took the best minds in our company to push them to the limit to be able to deliver this. And we've had some really successful demos and successful prototypes that we have built for Emirates, and it really opened our minds as well in the process. So there's much more that we could share on the topic, actually, but for everybody's sake, I would like to keep this within time. So if you do want to know a bit more about our expertise in the marketplace spaces, please don't hesitate to reach out. We would be more than happy to tell you more and share more slides and more information on the work we've done with Emirates. And I would like to take it now to the last slide. So just to briefly talk you through it. So the three next webinars, the first one that I've been mentioning is building roadmap of your e-commerce ecosystem of technologies. This is where we'll be talking about the boundaries beyond the commerce engine. You know, what other things do you want to consider? Do you want to externalize your pricing? Do you want to externalize your personalization? How do you manage your customer experience? You know, all the different technologies that actually work quite well with SAP Commerce. We'll be talking about those. Webinar number 3, we'll talk about functional implementation best practices in a little bit in the context of SAP Commerce, but really focusing on the B2B capabilities and what's important in that space. And last but not least, we will actually jointly together with SAP, we'll be delivering a webinar to consolidate all of these areas and talk about what we offer as a provider on the market. So please follow through. Along the way, we'll be sharing some really interesting observations, facts, trends, and best practices. So please join. We'll be more than happy to see you at every session, and we'll be more than happy again at any point to talk. So please don't hesitate to reach out directly as well. If you'd like to get in touch with us, these are the key people to speak to. If you want to connect on LinkedIn, again, their profiles are linked in this slide. So if you get the slide from LinkedIn, once I share the link, you can click through and you can speak to Gio, to Nikhil, or to myself about any of these points. So we're just 1 minute over time. And I would like to thank everyone for sticking with us throughout this session. I hope it's been insightful. I hope it's been useful. Thank you very much for really interesting questions that you've asked. I do apologize that we couldn't pick up all of these questions, but please save them up. Please join next webinar. If there's still something and there's more time left for us to talk about it, please don't hesitate to ask about past webinars. And otherwise, I would like to wish you all a great day and a great weekend ahead. It's been fantastic to see you all join this webinar. Great thanks from the rest of Reply, and we hope to be hearing from you soon. Thank you so much. Have a good day.